Hello, welcome to another episode of Frames of Mind, where we get to know the mind behind the frame. My name is Georgie. I use they, them pronouns, and today I am joined by.
Hi, I'm Marta Méndez Cross, she, her.
Valeria Maldonado, she, her.
Virginia Novello, she, her.
So much for joining me today. So we're here to talk about Las Tres Sisters, and Valeria, you were posting today how this is your first press day after 9 years. So can you guys tell me a little bit about the journey on making this movie and how you guys met and all of that? Because I watched the film recently, and you guys have such a great chemistry that I could buy it that you are sisters, even talking to you now too. So
Well, that's
yeah,
as we are.
okay.
We may not be by blood or like our last names, but we are definitely sisters. And it's been such a beautiful journey. It's taken us 9 years to get here, as you said. And oh my God, we have gone through everything. And that's what's made us sisters. We started with a short film with Marta pregnant. She was 8 months pregnant. We wrote this screenplay while one was holding a newborn and the other one was putting the other one into a bath and the other one was making dinner. And we were like sharing our secrets and then putting them in a script. So we have really become sisters throughout all of these years, and it's just such a miracle right now to be doing this, to have our first press day, to have the movie going to theaters. I still remember us years ago coming together and having like a session, the three of us being like, okay, we're having fear around if we can really imagine if we'd ever shoot this. Like, let's talk about it. Like, what are our fears? What's stopping us? And it was a stretch for us to believe that we could shoot it. And then now it's in theaters. So it has been a lot of growth between the three of us, but also personally, all of us to believe that this story deserves to be out there and that this story has a purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally love that. And so I caught your movie this week. I watched it, and you guys don't, I haven't known you guys that long, but the Attack on Titan movie was also out in theaters, so I went to go see that, and then I went to see your movie. And I only mention this because people who know me know how much I adore Attack on Titan. And then I got home, and your movie made me feel just as much as the ending of that series, and I was just like, I don't want to give anything away, but it was just like I had so many emotions through your movie. You know what I'm talking about, and Marta, like you blew me away. You all blew me away, but there's like specific beats where I was just like, "Oh my God, my besties did that." Um,
Aww.
yeah, of course. So, yeah, your movie had me in the feels just as much as Attack on Titan.
Wow.
Yeah, so congratulations.
What a
And
compliment.
Y-
Thank you.
of- Yeah, of course. And one of the things I also really loved was, Latinidad, our like being Latino in this film because it's tough. There's with immigration, like different first generation, second generation, whatnot. I myself am like third generation, and so I don't speak Spanish. I want to say I'm like Marta's character, but I'm not because I don't try to speak Spanish and she tries to speak Spanish and she kind of doesn't, she thinks she can't sometimes, which is great. Um, but it's like we can live in a world between worlds sometimes because here in America, like Valeria's character, we're not white enough in the workplace or whatnot, so we're discriminated against. And then when we go on vacation to Mexico, it's so easy to clock us as like, we can be called like gringo gringa or whatnot, and it's like we're not enough for either in certain ways. And I just thought you guys captured that beautifully. And I wanted to ask you about like inspirations for bringing that about. Like, was there any particular moment in your life? Any secrets you shared?
I, I mean, for me, I mean, we all can relate to it so clearly. And also, I'm so excited to hear how much you related to it because I keep saying this like right now, our identity is political, right? And so part of it is too like, well, if there's all of this strife around our identity, but like we're here in the US, I'm American or but also I'm supposed to be from whatever other country that people are saying like to go back to. It's one of those things that in the movie, um, I want Latinos to watch it and I want them to be proud of their culture. I want them to the Latinx to be proud of their culture, to, be okay with trying Spanish, For me, it's real what Maria was doing. I literally I can't wait to show my family in Costa Rica because soy tica as well. And they know that's exactly me. I would just fumble my way through unapologetically. But a lot of people, like my siblings, are like Lucia's character, who they won't speak it because it's not perfect. And they don't want to sound like an idiot. And so in the end, I just want people to watch it and go, listen, I embrace my Latinidad. I embrace who I am. I am this because that's who I am, right?
Yeah, for sure. And Virginia, I wanted to ask you too, how did you relate to this? Because your character of the bunch does speak Spanish, and I also want to mention I love your character. So I just wanted to ask you how you relate to this Latinidad that we're speaking to right now.
Thank you so much. I think we did it very much on purpose to showcase that even when you're born in the same family, you have different relationship with language and with the country. Is like your culture. It's very different. It doesn't mean that because you grew up in the same family, you have the same, right? So we really were very intentional of writing that. And like everybody has a different relationship. For Sophia, she left the US when she was around 18. We have that as a like backstory. And she moved back to Mexico. And so she feels more Mexican. And she kind of feels like, oh yeah, these gringas, she kind of like does that to them. And that's also like the conflict that she has. But between them, they speak English because that's what they grew up speaking to each other. So the way they relate to one another is in English and in some Spanglish. But then there's moments of where Sophia feels like better than because she's like, I know this, guys. Like I know here. Like you haven't even come here. So like, and so that is also very real, right? When there's like a rejection even from the same community of like, you don't speak it, so you're less than. And we wanted to include everybody. That Latinidad and being Latino includes all types of people. It doesn't matter if you speak Spanish or if you don't, or have you been to even your motherland or you haven't. You still have that blood and you still grew up with that culture. And so you are as much part of anybody else. And so we did it very intentionally to really showcase all types of ways that you can still be a Latina.
Yeah, beautifully said. Um, and kind of sticking to that topic, but might be a little bit of a tangent. I really wanted to ask you guys, menudo or pozole?
Pozole,
Okay.
100%.
I don't know if I'm hangover,
Oh my God.
menudo.
Okay. How about for Marta?
I mean, now that I know how to say it right, pozole. I
Okay.
I said pasole for the longest time. Or am I saying it wrong or right now?
You said it right the first time.
Pozole.
Yes. Okay. Pozole.
Pozole. Okay, okay.
New
Yeah,
Jersey, what about you?
I'm a menudo girly. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh.
I was watching the movie with my dad and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna ask them this tomorrow." And then he was like, "You used to like pozole when you were little." And I was just like, "I still like pozole, but menudo is just better. I don't know. Menudo just hits different. I love pozole. We fight about it all the time,
I
menudo and
love it.
pozole." Yeah. And one thing I also wanted to talk about too was, a lot of the real conversations you have around like Spanish. I just wanted to bring up the fact that like, cause me being third generation, I don't speak Spanish and like I have never had like a full conversation with like my grandmother because I don't speak Spanish. And so one thing that like your movie kind of inspired me to do is like this year I want to like kind of return to like the Latino side a little bit more. And like you said, Marta, like learn the Spanish, don't be afraid to try and all of that. And so, is that something you hope people take away to kind of maybe connect more back with their roots with this film?
I mean, listen, I'm a huge advocate of embracing being Latino because like I felt so whitewashed is the word. Are we allowed to
Mm-hmm.
say that? Like I simulated, I was in Texas and we literally there were people around me calling Latinos beaners and I didn't um I wanted to fit in. And so my mom wanted to give me a quinceañera. I was like, please, for the love of God, no. Like I was devastated. I didn't want to be embarrassed. I was embarrassed of my Latinidad. And it made me so sad when I got to college where it was so diverse, and this is still Texas and Austin, that there were so many Latinos. They were speaking Spanish, and there was just such a different perspective that I started a web sign with my friends called Las Latinitas and it was to, are you familiar with them? They're still around, but it's to help like Latina preteens embrace their roots, because a lot of the second, third generation, especially in Texas, they don't embrace it. Their parents weren't allowed to speak Spanish in school. It was against policy, it was against law. And
Yeah.
that's why they didn't teach their kids, a lot of like older generations. So I was so proud of my roots when I started going down that journey. And I was born in Panama. I spent my early years in Costa Rica, and I was so far removed from them to fit in the US, in Texas, where I was in Texas. And
Mhm.
so I really want people to watch this if they're also not, if they're further away from their roots and they don't think they're Latin enough to go back there. I want them to know that you are, so just go. Like try to speak it. My grandmother too, she didn't speak any Spanish. I mean any English, so I couldn't communicate with her, but now I can. So yes, I hope that Latinos like me that relate to me and my character and to Lucia and her character, that they will embrace it and they will try the language or just know that they are.
Yeah, for sure. And I think obviously beautifully said. One of the things too you spoke to was like they weren't allowed to speak Spanish. And I think one thing that's not really talked about is like for me, something I didn't really process till like the end of last year after like the Guadalajara festival, well, film festival. I was like, what if I never learned Spanish because of the stereotype around Spanish? Because I went to school in Burbank in elementary school, and I at the time I was one of like the few people of color in the school. And so that's how I found out one of the racial slurs against our community was like a kid called that to me on the playground. And then I asked my mom later, I was like, what is this? And she was like, who called you that? And I just had no idea. It was just like another word, you know. And so, like, I think also that that plays a part into third generation why we're disconnected because it's like we're lesser than for speaking Spanish. So why would we want to learn Spanish? And then, you know, now I'm an adult, I want to like reconnect to it, but that's just so like beautifully put, and I think that's something you guys touch on the film as well because like um Valeria's character, you know, like in the workplace there's that discrimination going on and it's just like hard to fit in anywhere. So I think that was really well put. How did you connect with that journey, Valeria?
This is all just so fascinating. I love this conversation. I connect to, you know, you just said so Lucia in the workplace is seen as a diversity hire, right? And
Mm-hmm.
taken seriously. And so there she's too Latina. But then she goes to Mexico and there she's too gringa. And I relate to that personally. Like my whole life, being a little girl, I grew up in San Diego. I didn't grow up. I was born in San Diego. And at 6, I moved to Mexico. And when I moved to Mexico, I had an accent in my English, in my Spanish. I can't put them together. In my Spanish, and people would make fun of me. They'd be like the little gringa kid that just got to Mexico. But then we would go back to the States and I was the Mexican. And so I swear I have had a lot of therapy sessions about this of like, but which one am I? You know, where am I from? Where do I belong? And if I am honest with you, I still don't know. Like, I know I'm a part of both, and I know both live in me. We all have duality in so many ways, right? But I still to this day wonder, like, I go to Mexico and I'm like, maybe I should live here. And then I'm in LA and I'm like, no, I should live here. No. And there's this constant, duality that I think most immigrants, it doesn't matter where you're from and it doesn't matter what generation you are. There's two things happening at the same time. And there's like, am I this? Am I that? Right. And yeah, I think I say this to myself all the time, but if we could just embrace that we can be both and we can be all of it, we can be all of it. And that's our superpower. But it is something I'm telling you, and I'm like, I write it in my journal and I have to like remind myself, it's still alive. It's still alive.
Yeah. How about for you, Virginia?
For me, it's kind of like the opposite because I grew up in Mexico,
Okay.
which is why also like that Sophia character, we wanted to add that because I grew up in Mexico. My second language was German. And so I didn't speak English until really later. And then I moved to LA when I was 19, but my whole family is in Guadalajara, in Mexico. I'm the only one who migrated.
Okay.
So I'm first generation, immigrant. and the only one, because everybody lives within a block from one another, so everybody is like so close to one another, and I'm like the one that left. And it was an interesting, I was fish out of water, on the other side, to the
Hmm.
US, and being like, oh, but then also connecting so much, when you are out of your country, and then you appreciate so many more things about your own, and about your own people and stuff like that. And so I got to appreciate more. And LA is so diverse. And that is one of the main things that I love about LA, is the diversity of it. And I could find Latinos from all over the world. And I could find a little piece of Mexico somewhere,
Yeah.
and the same pozole that I have in Mexico, I can find it there. And it is just so, because of the culture that immigrants bring into other countries, that makes the country richer. And LA is so rich because of its diversity. And it's one of the reasons why I keep living there, because I love the diversity of it all. And
Yeah.
so it was at first hard, but then it was so heartwarming, and it was so felt like home, because it's still very much part of Mexico. Feels like, I never feel separated from it.
Yeah, I love that. I love this whole conversation because don't really get to talk about this much with movies, but there's just so much here that we can talk about this all day. It might be a little bit of a tangent, Virginia, but you said your second language was German?
Hmm.
Can you tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about that? Because my
I know,
second
it's
language
so
is
random.
Russian. I'm learning it right now in school.
Gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also added Japanese this quarter as well, so I'm studying
Oh
Russian and Japanese at the same
my
time.
God. Why are
Yeah,
you starting the hardest language on the face of the planet? That is that is
because I
amazing.
love them. Ya lubię.
Yeah, yes. So German is very random, because we don't have any roots in Germany at all. And so, but I went to the German school in Guadalajara, and then
Oh,
and since kindergarten. So that was my second language, because I started, since kindergarten, to learn the numbers in German and all the things in German. And then when I was 11, I lived there for a year in a boarding school, because
okay.
after the sixth grade, all the classes like physics and math were in German. So I needed to get immersed into the language in
Yeah.
order to do that. That's something that actually me and Cristo have in common, who's also in the movie. He also went to the German school, and he played soccer with my brother,
Oh,
in the
no
same
way.
school. Yeah, in the same school. And so Cristo's also family, just like, it was, my dad had like kind of a trauma of a kid that he used to play with that spoke German, and my dad is like, that is amazing, and I'm going to put my kids into German school, with no rhyme or reason because of that. And so we all spoke German, and except for my parents, and that was really fun that they didn't get to, and so we got to speak like a secret language amongst the siblings without my parents knowing
Oh,
anything. So
that's
that was really fun.
fascinating. That's crazy because my parents sometimes will speak Spanish around me, and it's like I say, your language. So I'm like, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah.
Nothing. So you guys had like the flip side of that.
We did. We had the flip side. My mom was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "You put us in the German school. You don't get to, this is your doing."
Oh my gosh, I love that. And I also wanted to ask you really quick because at the time of recording, it is Valentine's Day, and your Valentine is also in the movie. Your husband Adam plays Marta's husband. Um, I see Marta laughing,
Why
so
are you
I feel
trying
like
to be
there's a story
scandalous?
here.
Why are you trying to be scandalous?
It's not scandalous.
I
Yeah, like
mean,
forever Valentine. He is just so beautiful of a human being. He's an amazing actor. He has such a big acting career. He's acted with Matt Damon and like all of like the big people. And so it was great when we were writing the story. We knew we wanted him, but we didn't know where to place him. And then it was like so funny and so fun to be able to play Harold, because we were able to ride parts of who he really is inside of the movie, because he's incredibly emotional human being. He cries about everything. That is the truth. That is who he is at his core. He's such a big guy, but so emotional. He's have such beautiful dualities. And so we wanted to play into that. And I like, he cries all the time, and then him actually crying all the time. And
Yeah.
and then to me, it was not uncomfortable. I was like, go at it, like have, because I would say that Marta and Adam have very similar energies.
Mhm.
Yeah.
very similar energies. And so I always go like, oh, Adam would say that, or like Marta could say this, you know? So it was very, to me, it's a beautiful synergy of they're both very similar poppy-like energies. So to me, it was very obvious and not weird to me, but Marta had a different experience.
Oh, we're talking real right now. Okay, real, real.
Okay.
So of course, just as a producer, as a writer, we're trying to get our film made. I said to Virginia, "Do you think Adam would want to play Harold, my husband?" And she was like, "He would love it." I was like, "Oh my God, this is great. This is perfect. He'll come to Mexico." And as a producer, thinking like, "Yeah, you guys can stay in the same room." It was,
Okay, yeah.
and then it got close to filming, and I remember I was like, "Oh shoot, I have to kiss him in a scene." Hold on. Let me back up. And so I called Virginia and I said, Virginia, I want to talk to you about something and I want to be real. I'm an actor. We're all professional actors and we do this for a living, but it's still a thing. Like I am kissing your husband. They're paying me and they're filming it, but which makes it okay, but sounds weird out loud. Like literally, I need to know, are you okay? And she's like, oh, yes, of course. Yes, this is great. It's going to be wonderful. And I was like, okay. So I hang up and then I'm like, am I okay? Because these are some of my best friends. I was like, this is wild. And then on the day, who was it? Valeria? Was it Valeria or Virginia?
Yeah, I was there. I was.
Valeria.
We were
Oh,
all there. I was there. And then you
they
kicked me
were there.
upset.
They kicked you out. They kicked you out though.
We
Yeah.
kicked her out because Valeria came up to me. She's like, you look like you're kissing your brother. You need to
Oh,
like
she looked like
make him your husband.
like
And he's a very, very good looking man, charming, all the whole package, but it's like still you're like, it's brother energy right here, my best friend's husband. And
Right.
I'm a human. I couldn't get past
Yeah.
it. Finally, I think it was fine. I think it worked out. What did you think, Georgie, on
I thought it
camera?
was good. Oh, you had so much chemistry. Yeah, you guys did very well. And you all as sisters again have so much chemistry. Like the Dia de los Muertos night scene, so good. Like I want to pick that apart so much, but we are running out of time. I also just wanted to follow up because you mentioned, um, like it was a brother energy. You're like we're in Mexico, not Alabama, so you're like we gotta lock in. Um,
I love that. Oh my God.
Sorry, Alabama. But yeah, so I wanted to ask you guys because my show is called Frames of Mind, so I have two questions I like to ask all of my guests. What's your favorite frame? Do you have a favorite frame from this film?
oh, that is such a good question. Oh my God. Hold on.
Does anything come to mind for you, Marta?
Yes,
Okay. What
it's
is it?
the end. I don't want to give away the ending.
We know
Mm.
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite frame. It is more than I could have imagined that scene would look like. Mar Nova, our director, she is a master at framing, at color, at just the artistry of each frame, and she captured that more than my wildest dreams. It was the most beautiful frame for me.
Yeah, for sure. Beautiful cinematography, direction, everything. Amazing.
Maybe
How about,
because you just talked about the cemetery scene, so that's where my brain is. But
okay.
that's the frame when it's the three of us and we're sitting and we're having that fight, and it's like a one shot, it doesn't cut to anything, and it's just the three of us. I love that. So much happens, and it's like funny, and it's beautiful with all the Dia de Muertos stuff like surrounding it. Yeah, I think today, at least in this moment, that's my favorite. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Beautiful shots.
I
Mhm.
think for me, the Temazcal, but
Mhm.
the actual frame, the beginning of the Temazcal when we're outside and
Mhm.
she's explaining to us what it is.
Mhm.
Because the colors, the fire, the
Mhm.
feeling, the way we're dressed, the nopales in the background, the Temazcal outside, the womb like Temazcal outside. So many beautiful nudges to our ancestors, so many beautiful nudges to our culture. And she captured it all in one frame. And that was beautiful to see.
Yeah, I love that so much. It's all beautiful answers. And then my last question, what's on your mind? Is there anything you've been watching lately that you can't stop thinking about? Can be movies, TV, anything.
I have an answer to that.
I know. Huh?
I have an answer to that. What I've been thinking. I watched this with my husband. who, as we established, we didn't establish, he's white. He's a Texan. He's a Texan white big man, but he appreciates the Mexican culture. He's an adoptee as well. We adopted him in our culture as well, and he loves the Mexican culture. And we watched the whole series from beginning to end of La Máquina, and he kept saying the ending of that show, the end of that show is so, he's like, it is one of the best ending of the whole television that I've ever experienced in my life. And I have to agree, because I love one of the things about that show, even though it's about boxing, and especially the ending, which I'm not going to give away, but especially the ending, is the bond between two friends, and the dynamic between a friendship of male, and that they get to be emotional, and they get to be human, and they get to be connected in what they do with each other, that I don't see often, and I don't see often in our culture at all. I don't see men, boxing, hitting each other, but then have this deep connection and vulnerability with one another. And to see Gael and Diego putting that as a first Hulu Spanish speaking show, and that my husband, that doesn't speak Spanish, was so immersed in the story, and he truly was like, this is one of the best shows that I've ever seen. And that the scene at the end, the last scene at the end, I can't stop thinking about that. I can't stop thinking about this last scene at the end of that show.
Yeah, love it.
I started watching it, but I only saw the first episode, so now I want to watch the whole thing. I was in between two things, but now I don't know why I was in between two things. I'm obsessed with Wicked. I am obsessed. My sisters will tell you, like, we'll talk about something deep, and I'm like, because like in Wicked, like, I'm so obsessed. I've seen it now 3 times with like the cast present. I think Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. And it's funny because it's about their friendship, right? And here we're talking so much like our friendship is such a thing. And we've also been crying a lot. So I'm also like, are we gonna be the new, like, are we gonna outcry Ariana and Cynthia? Maybe. We have a lot of emotions, but I love it. And also for me, it's a lot of people, I feel like, I love musical theater and I'm a musical theater geek 1,000%, but it's also the message. The message that is there that I don't think a lot of people talk about, but like the political message of a tyrant that has no power, making a scapegoat out of a certain community, and taking away their power, and putting them in cages. For me, it's incredibly moving. And it's one of the reasons that I'm so passionate about the movie, because yeah. And because it's like, and if the otherhood, right? You're green, so then ew. And that applies to your brown. And so ew. And so that, and they sing incredibly.
She's a musical theater.
I'm such a musical. I'm trying to convince them to do Las Tres Sisters, the movie musical, but they haven't wanted to budge yet.
Oh no, maybe not. I've been fired.
So sadly we do have to wrap, but I do want to ask you, Marta, really quick, if there was anything that you've watched recently to get all
The
three of you.
Super Bowl halftime show.
Okay.
Kendrick, I can't stop thinking about it. I can't stop looking at posts on the internet of how people processed and were impacted by it. People who are like, it's the most terrible, a terrible halftime show. They didn't get it. The symbolism, I was on fire. I'm like, it's on. The revolution is on. Here we go. I loved every piece of that. And it reminded me as an artist to use everything that I do, make sure there's a message behind everything that I do, because people are.
Beautiful. Thank you guys so much for your time. We could talk about this all day. Congratulations. So proud of you guys. So proud to call you guys my friends. And congratulations again. And go see Las Tres Sisters in theaters this week.
Thank you. This was such a pleasure. Thank you.
February 21st.
February 21st. Yes.